Welcome to Networking RX, a podcast devoted to helping business professionals like you enhance your networking skills in order to become more proficient giving and receiving quality business referrals and improving the overall quality of your life and the lives of those around you. The Networking RX podcast is a production of AmSpirit Business Connections, an organization whose mission is to empower business success through networking.
I've said it time and again on this particular podcast that networking is a game of inches. And what I mean by that is I'm talking about the 6 inches between your ears, or between somebody's ears. It might not be between your ears. I just see so many people out there, and I've kind of coached them up on you need to do A, B, and C, and somehow or another they get A and B done, but something just prevents them from doing C. And it's not like C is anything difficult. It's just they find every excuse under the sun to do C, or they might have a whole different interpretation of what C is. And it can, it's not, C can be any number of different things. And at first it really kind of boggled my mind. It's like, okay, did I not explain it correctly? Or, where is the hang up? And then you start to realize that it's something within them. It's something maybe subconscious, a self-limiting belief, if you will. So today I have on with me Jamie Ellithorpe, who is an author. She calls herself the anti-marketer, but she has a whole marketing business. But she's author of a book called the Mindset Method Book, and in that book she talks about something akin to what I've just described, where people have everything they need and they just can't execute on it. So anyhow, welcome to the program.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here.
All right. So what prompted you to write the book?
So I started off early in my business as a small business growth coach and really a marketing strategist. And how I worked with clients is we'd typically meet once a week. We would talk about problems that they had going on in their business, and then we'd come up with strategies to overcome them with the goal of growing the business. And what I started to see meeting with some of these clients week in and week out is we would create these fabulous strategies. They'd be so excited about using them to grow their business, and they would leave the session with some homework. Maybe it was taking a stack of business cards that they had collected at last week's networking group, and the goal was to call these people and set up a little one-to-one meeting. And they would come back to this session, our coaching session, the week later and not done anything. And so the conversation would end up being just like last week's conversation. And I would see this go on week in and week out. In the back of my mind, I'm thinking, I know these people want to grow their business. They're paying me good money to do it, but they're not executing. And I started to realize it was their mindset that was preventing them from getting the results that they wanted. And this showed up in a lot of different ways. It was fear, it was worry, it was doubt. It was just a myriad of things, or a combination of those things together, that was stopping them from executing on the physical things that they needed to do to grow their business. So I started to realize that it wasn't just about possibly not having the right strategy or doing the wrong strategy. A lot of times the strategy was right, but it was the execution that was missing, and it really boiled down to the mindset.
I mean, that's exactly what you just said, is exactly what I have seen. I remember one of my first franchisees, I had run the business for a number of years, 10 plus years. I knew what I needed to do, what somebody needed to do to be successful. And we would have these weekly calls, and they would be simple things like, to your point, just call somebody. Let's just commit that you're going to do that, and get on the phone with them a week later. And it's like, yeah, I didn't get around to that. How could you not do that? How could you not? It's just, that's the linchpin to what we're trying to do, And of course,
exactly. But the mind plays funny tricks. Like, my clients would always have the best excuse, like you said, that, oh my gosh, I got so busy, or these clients needed, to see me at the last minute, whatever it was, but it was like they could logic themselves out of the illogical mindset trap that they were
Right.
in.
How did you deal with them? I mean, here's my situation. Maybe you're the same situation. Early on, I didn't have many franchisees, so it didn't feel like I could really play the tough love card, right? Oh, it's okay. It's okay. We'll get him next week, Tiger, kind of a, you know, and then next week, and then the next week, and then the next week. But I would hang up the phone. I would be just so frustrated because they knew exactly what they needed to be doing. How did you get them over the hump with respect to these things and doing what they needed to be doing?
Yeah. So, part of my backstory in growing my business was it really started off as a personal development journey. I started off as a very unhappy corporate executive thinking, wow, there's got to be more to life than this. So, I ended up hiring a personal development coach. And that was really the catalyst for me to really get into this business because I saw the power of that and worked through a lot of my own mindset blocks that were preventing me from some of the things that I wanted in life. And so during that time of starting my consultancy, I was also going down that path and getting my own coaching certification. So I was learning tools and things that I could provide my clients alongside the real business strategies. So when I see those things come up, I'd be very gentle about it, but I'd sort of call it out and say, let's stop and talk about this. You told me you had 12 business cards from last week's networking group. You didn't get a chance to follow up. I understand you're busy, but tell me about that. And I would start to gently unpack all of the layers of how those business cards were making them feel, or the thought of picking up the phone to call them. And once I could get them to start realizing that there was an emotional piece to the logical piece of just picking up the phone and calling somebody, then they were more willing to work through that because they started to realize. So I guess step one was really awareness. When I brought to their attention, like, yes, you needed a strategy, but you feeling doubtful that someone might want to book an appointment with you when you call them is part of the reason you don't have the appointment. It's not necessarily the fact that you didn't call them. So, getting them to step back from that emotion and taking the edge off that emotion and being able to replace it with an emotion that felt good was part of the work that we did in those coaching sessions together.
Um, Now, is there a methodology in the book? I'm looking at your LinkedIn pro. You have quite a history here. I mean that in a good way to our audience. Um, is there a methodology? I see here 5 steps to stability. Is that something that's related to the book?
That's the business structures that
Okay.
we go through on getting through all of the steps you need to create a successful business. But yes, in the mindset method, there is a structure to that. And what I really tell people is step number one, and the most important step, is becoming aware. We live in such a fast-paced world where we're really just responding to what's going on around us, more not proactive, but maybe more reactively, is to become more proactive and become really aware when something comes up in your business. What are you thinking about that? And what are you feeling about that? So we can get as basic as not really even having to put a label on the feeling, but whether it feels good or it doesn't feel good. So if something you're working on something in your business, or you're getting ready to handle a situation, and as you're thinking about that, you start to feel bad, that's an indicator that you're not really in alignment with the outcome that you want from that. So that's kind of the work, is at least recognizing that and stopping, because most of the time the average person isn't even recognizing what they're thinking and feeling. It's just kind of an autopilot.
Okay, so step one's recognition.
Yes.
And then beyond what, well, I guess what goes beyond what happens next.
Yeah. So
Well,
we'll just stay with that. We'll just stay
what
with that.
I was going to say, do people get in denial about things like this? Like, oh no, no, I'm
I
not.
mean, they can,
Okay,
but I think once you recognize that this is what's really preventing you from reaching that goal, then
yeah,
it becomes more imperative that you do it, right? So I guess it really boils down to how serious do you want to achieve that goal? So if you have a goal of bringing on, since we're at the end of a year, next year you want to bring on 10 new clients. But every time you think about reaching out to someone that you think might be a potential client, we'll use the calling example because I think that's one of the most difficult ones for people is thinking about picking up that phone. And every time you think about picking up the phone, it weighs 500 pounds. What you want to do is stop and say, okay, why does the phone seem to feel like 500 pounds? And then when you just kind of quiet your mind, that stuff will start to surface. That, well, what if they don't answer the phone and I'm scared to leave a message? Well, then now you address, well, why are you afraid to leave a message? Well, I'm fearful that I'm going to look like a fool, that I leave them a voicemail and they don't call me back, and now I feel rejected. So now we're starting to unravel the path of why you're not picking up the phone. And once you can reframe those thoughts and those feelings to feel good about them,
right.
then you'll start to take action because it doesn't feel as heavy.
Yeah, I mean, my mindset with those sorts of things is nobody knows you made that call, but you and the person you've left a message with, right? Um, but in our minds, we have this impression that everybody knows that we've made that call and they didn't call back. And if I call a second time, I'm going to appear desperate. Um, and so,
Exactly.
so I don't want to waste the first time because then I don't have to go to the second time. Um, so no, I totally get it. And I have been through that. What I have kind of coached myself, or what I've worked through my own head trash, is like, number one, nobody else knows you made the call. And number two, the second call can be just assume that they didn't get the first message for whatever reason, you know? Um, and what I have found is eventually people will follow up and they'll, oh, I'm really sorry, I've been busy. They feel bad. Um, so
Yeah, I can't remember who this author is, but she has a beautiful protocol of you simply turn it back on yourself. So if you call someone and they don't call you back, and in your mind you're saying, well, she should have called me back,
yeah,
then turn it around to, well, why should she call you back? Should you call her back?
right.
So a lot of it is about reframing, is just recognizing your thoughts because the thought is what charges the feeling. And most of the time we don't act on feelings that don't feel good. We try to repress them. We
Right.
try to stuff them down so we don't feel them. So that's why many people ignore a certain subject is because they tell you I don't want to think about it. Well, the reason they don't want to think about it is because it makes them feel bad when they think about it. So if you can reframe how you're thinking about it, that's going to change the feeling of the emotion. And so I could go on for days about this, but that's part of the work too, is every thought you have, if you can make it feel a little better and a little better, you'll literally feel the lightness in your body as you move from one emotion up to a better feeling emotion to where you really don't have any charge either way on it. And
Yeah.
that's the best place to get is when you're neutral, that whether I call Mary and she answers the phone or not, I don't have a charge to her answering the phone any more than I have a charge of her not answering the phone, that the outcome is completely neutral to me. That's the best place to be when you're trying to execute something new, different, or you've never been there before.
I love the whole notion of reframing because we do tell ourselves stories.
Absolutely.
They're not calling back because fill in the blank, whatever it is. And it's always something personal to us, or can be personal to, it's not always. It can be personal to us. Um, I have a friend and his whole thing is I'm going to make them get a restraining order. Right. I'm not going to be a pest, but I'm just going to, hey, I'm just calling again just to touch base. And email makes it easy because you can respond with email and like, hey, I stumbled across this article, I saw this, and it's not always, hey, did you read my proposal? Did you read my proposal? It's, I saw this other thing, or this was happening here, or, this, or, I know you're well, before we hit record, Jamie indicated she's a hockey fan or somewhat of a hockey fan. I noticed you're a Dallas Stars fan. I saw that they lost in overtime or whatever. And so you can kind of, it doesn't always have to be about business, but you can just kind of keep wearing them down and keep wearing them down. And that's his whole mindset is I'm just going to make them get a restraining order, make them tell me to stop, and I'll stop. But most people won't.
Well, kind of in alignment with mindset, but really more in the marketing strategy, studies are showing that it's taking more and more outreaches to get people's attention nowadays. And it's because we have such a short attention span. We're being inundated with offers and opportunities and information that our brain tends to tune out what we're not looking for. So if the message was just a little bit off from what I'm concentrating on at the moment, I might not have seen it or I might have disregarded it because my brain is designed in a sense to protect me from overload. So it's going to focus on what I'm kind of telling it to focus on. So a lot of times it's really not a personal rejection. It might just be a little bit of a rejection of the message because it just wasn't what that person was thinking at that moment.
Well, and again, it gets back to stories, but not everybody operates the same way you do or I do. I'm somebody that by the end of the day, I have responded to all my emails. I don't have things that are lingering out there. It might be, listen, I'm busy, I'll get back to you. And that's just my MO with respect to emails or texts, LinkedIn messages. I don't want them to go cold. But I forget from time to time that not everybody's like that. Right. And there are people that will go weeks and not see their email. I mean, you could give them the 6 winning lottery numbers for tonight's Super Lotto and they will miss it because that's just how they deal with email. But in your
Well,
mind, go ahead.
yeah, I was going to say, then we have a perfect example between the two of us to share with your audience is you sent me an email and we were back and forth on a string and somehow your latest response ended up like, I don't know if I did it by accident or it just somehow landed in the trash, but I got to thinking, you know what? I haven't heard from Frank in about a week and I went looking for that email and it was in the trash. And you could have been sitting there thinking, wow, how rude is Jamie? Or she forgot about me, or she rejected my message. And it was because I simply didn't see it.
Yeah.
And I think that happens a lot in business and especially with marketing.
Yeah. Well, I wasn't pining away. I'm pretty.
Good. You don't have any mind trash then, right?
Well, I don't know about that, but I'm secure enough with respect to things now. But I could see, well, there was a point in business where it would have bothered me, and where I don't know that I've gotten beyond it so much as that I've gotten so busy that I have so many things out there that if somebody's dissing me, or not responding, I just lose track of it. I've got other things. It's okay, and I have a system I'll follow up eventually, but I don't know. So yeah, but yeah,
Well,
that's a
and
perfect.
I think that's a perfect point for someone in business is your message is more important to you than it really is anybody else. So
Yeah,
you
yeah,
know,
good point.
if I leave Mary a voicemail and she doesn't respond, it hurts my feelings more about that because I was more concerned about making sure that Mary knew about my offer of the week and Mary's dealing with 50 other subjects in her life and business. So she might not have even noticed, and here I am sitting taking personal rejection.
Yeah.
But
Well, it's like I tell people going to networking events. Nobody goes to a networking event saying, "Geez, I hope Jamie's there to pitch me." Nobody, right? You know,
exactly.
So the fact that somebody doesn't talk to you or doesn't get back to you, they're pitching somebody else, maybe whatever else. There's a whole bunch of, and it gets in, again, it gets back into, how we view things. Do you find that people ultimately build a resiliency, or they potentially lapse back into it? I mean, it's
Both. I have had clients make amazing strides forward and then stopped the coaching and they've gone backwards. So it's kind of like anything else. Like if you're on a health kick and you're eating well, you're exercising and you lose weight and then you stop all that, you have a tendency to regress. I think the mindset is just like your body. You have to work it out all the time. It's not like I went and got a coaching certification or I read a special book and now my mindset's fixed.
mm-hmm.
I still have to work on my inner game just as much as the beginner does. So it's a never ending thing. I mean, I don't know if that's good news or bad news to hear that, but it's just like eating and drinking that you have to continuously work on your mindset, be aware, catch yourself, notice the things that are coming up and address them.
No, it makes total sense. I mean, I analogize it to weightlifting, and you don't go to the gym and lift and then you're done. You have to go back a couple days later, and then a couple days later, and then a couple days later. So it's
Now, I will say, after working diligently on my mindset for many, many years now, the big stuff is gone. So
right.
now it's just the little niggling stuff that comes up. Like, I'll share an example. I'm getting ready to make a big offer. And I think it's a crazy, amazing offer that's a no-brainer. But I'm a little nervous about putting it out there because I'm thinking like, what if people don't like it?
Mm,
What if they don't want it? What if nobody raises their hand? So there's my stuff coming up, right? But that's
yeah.
pretty simple. Like I can work through that. That's not like I'm not good enough to deserve for people. And that's really, speaking of that, that's one of the cores, is if you really drill down, if you haven't done a lot of inner work, it stems from I'm not good enough or I don't deserve. Those are two of the big ones
Well,
that
I'm yeah,
spider out into many things in life and business.
I'm glad you brought that up because coughing here. I think everybody goes through this. I go through this. Same sorts of things. Putting an offer out to do speaking or consulting with a company, which is outside of what I normally do with my AmSpirit business. I find myself, let me review it. Let me make it perfect, right? And perfect because it becomes the enemy. And what I have discovered is that mornings are probably, excuse me, the best time. Because I just towards the end of the day, it's just like I feel like I'm beaten down. And if I just say, okay, I'm coming in, it's on my to-do list. I'm doing it today. I'm just going to, what's that book? Eat that frog, right? I'm just going to eat that frog.
Yeah.
I'm just going to put it out there. I'm going to hit send. It's done. It's gone. There's nothing I can do. I might have some regret. I wish I'd have said this, wish I'd have said that. Probably ruminate over that more than I need to, but it's done. So,
Absolutely. And a lot of it is just getting it out there, is doing the work, putting it out there. And here's the reality of marketing. Let's say you put an offer in front of 100 people and you did an email. 40 of those might have gone into somebody's spam or promotional folders. They didn't even see it. The other, I don't know, 20%, maybe they didn't recognize your name and they just deleted it. 10 of them read it, but the phone rang and they got distracted. 20 things came up and you're sitting at the bottom of their inbox with good intentions of getting back to it later. And some of them are sitting not open because they're not quite as good as you and getting through all their emails every day. I'm guilty of that.
yeah,
So it could sit unopened for a week.
yeah,
There's a myriad of possibilities of the fact that nobody even saw it, much less even gave it 10 seconds of rejection time.
right.
And nine times out of 10, when I see an offer, I don't really even think about that person. I just think, oh, is that what I'm looking for right now to help me with a particular problem that I've been thinking about? And if it doesn't line up, then I disregard it. I didn't even think about the sender. It wasn't even personal.
Yeah. let's shift gears here. Let's talk about your business. I mean, you are the best-selling author of the Mindset Method book, but you also have an agency, 540 Strategies. What's 540? I'm always curious about those sorts of
Yeah,
things.
so talking about emotions. So, a little background about me. So, when I got into personal development, a big piece of that was the law of attraction. And I started to study heavily on emotions and energy frequency and how that made us feel. And so, when I decided to start this business, I decided I wanted a business that I was happy with. So, 540 is the numerical or energetic equivalent to the word joy. So we're
Mm,
really all about joy strategies, and our core philosophy is that we want to bring joy to our clients so that they have joy in the work that they do and that they can have joy helping and impacting all the people that they're meant to help in this world.
I never would have guessed that.
A little bit deep there, right? It's not just an area code.
Well, yeah, my guess was a an interstate, you
Oh
know.
yeah. Yep.
But yeah, but 540, yeah, that's an area
It's
code
an
as well.
interstate to joy. How
Oh,
about
well, there you go. Yeah, I like it. I like it. Anyhow, talk about 540 strategies.
Yeah, absolutely. So we've talked about the inner game, right, of
Hmm.
growing a business. So there's also that outer game. We have to have real world strategies to grow a business. We can't just sit here and talk about our feelings. We have to execute on something that works. So that's the agency side of our business, and we focus in on LinkedIn. And the reason for that is because it's the perfect platform to create long lasting relationships not only with potential clients, but with potential business partners, referral partners, and opportunities. So that's what we help our clients do in the agency is we help them turn their LinkedIn profile into a lead generator for their business so they can make all these great connections and open the doors to opportunity.
Gotcha. I just recorded a podcast on LinkedIn and how I
You wrote
have
a book on that.
I did. Well, but I was just talking about how LinkedIn has really kind of morphed in the last year. There's just a lot of spammy things. And I kind of in the episode I went through, I was reading some of these. Hey, I looked at your profile. I figured you'd want to know about me. It's like, okay, I see that connection. Or um, did people trying to connect? Did you see my last offer? It's like, oh my gosh. Um,
Yeah,
uh,
absolutely. So, kind of speaking about mindset and fear of rejection, I just coined myself the anti-marketer, and the jury's still out on whether that resonates with my audience. But that's exactly why I put that out there, is because, like you, I'm so sick and tired of people trying to make relationships just for the sake of a sales pitch. And that's what
yeah,
we're not about at 540 Strategies. We're about real relationships and real human connections and bridging that with technology in order to systemize it.
that's that's exactly. People ask me, how do you use LinkedIn? I've never sold anything on LinkedIn. I don't think anybody's ever sold anything on LinkedIn. It's about relationships. It's about
Yes,
getting somebody on a Zoom call or over a cup of coffee or whatever. That's where it happens. Not immediately necessarily, but that connection leads to the next, leads to the next, leads to the next. Um,
absolutely. And that's the power of LinkedIn if used correctly. Is that there are amazing people on that platform. The opportunities are endless. I don't think if you sat here and dreamed the most amazing thing that could come your way, I don't know if you could until you start meeting these people. And it's just profound, really. And one of the most underutilized platforms they say out in the online space right now. So it's a great opportunity for new and upcoming businesses for sure.
well, what I find with respect to LinkedIn is you can look at somebody's profile. Well, I'll use you as an example. I can see from there that they're Iowa's in your past, and you're from Iowa, but in nowhere on there is there anything about hockey. And so having, not that you're a huge hockey fan or anything like that, but it's something to have a conversation about, and that's where relationships happen.
Absolutely.
So best way to get a hold of you, 540strategies.com.
Yep, you can go there. You can go to jamieellithorpe.com. That's my main website. But if you want to learn more about what we do, 540strategies.com. You can find me on LinkedIn and social media, including I have a Facebook business page. I'm on Instagram and all of the other alphabet soups.
Well, I appreciate your time today.
Thank you so much. I've enjoyed it.
Thanks for joining us on the Networking RX podcast. Please put what you've learned into action today and let us know if you have questions, comments, or ideas for future topics. You can email them to us at podcast@amspirit.com. That's AMSPIRIT.com. Finally, so you never miss an episode, be sure to subscribe to the Networking RX podcast through iTunes, Overcast, or however you receive your podcasts. Now get out and network with someone.
The Networking RX podcast is the copyright production of AmSpirit Business Connection. All rights reserved.